Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 123. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at Intergalactic Herald. Just look for newsletter 171. Quick summary of things to talk about today, and there's not a ton because about the only thing that occurred this past week was the Star Atlas Brew, where they went over some announcements and the HoloSim. And that was pretty much it. So not a ton of content this last week was produced in the Star Atlas ecosystem. But before I get to that, just wanted to mention a couple of things I'm working on within the Star Atlas ecosystem. First, of course, is my website, Intergalactic Herald. It's a great place for Star Atlas resources. So anything from beginner's guide to obviously the podcast you're listening to, directories of different Star Atlas groups from the content creators, guilds, builders, things like that. And new thing I do have now, actually working with one thing that the Star Atlas team made available, the community team made available, which is access to the Star Atlas Discord. So I'm able to extract the different announcements that come out from the announcement channel, events channel, minor announcements. So now you can actually read those, and I'm in the process of developing an email newsletter of those. So you can actually subscribe and get those pushed to your email. You can check all that out at Intergalactic Herald. Do have my merch store for Star Atlas called Intergalactic Gear, also found at intergalacticgear.com. Open for business, got a few mugs, a little bit of wall art on the back burner to create some other products there. But I also do have a merch survey, so love any feedback. And lastly, I am been trying to start a Star Atlas community. This is for Star Atlas gamers who don't want to join guilds, but nevertheless want to hang out with other Star Atlas gamers. Please go to intergalacticcoalition.com and you can fill out an interest survey there. As I alluded to at the beginning, there wasn't a ton of content. There were two community events this past week. One was a builder hour. It was actually on the past Thursday. It was a chance for different Star Atlas builders to talk about what they're building, either using the Star Atlas IP or maybe developing or things like that. They did mention a few things new, but again, nothing stands out as general knowledge. You're more than welcome to listen to it. Star Atlas TV did a recording of that, and I do have one of my AI summary audio recaps if you wanted to listen to that, 4 or 5 minute type of thing. Yeah, so nothing existed. But the big one was the community team's Atlas Brew, which was on the past Wednesday. Some of the news that they brought up was that I guess we'll call it, not announcements, but nominations. Sorry, another N type of word, for the COPA Awards and the Joni Awards. So if you're not familiar with this in Star Atlas, about typically once a year, a little more frequently, I guess, in the last 2 years, the Star Atlas community team puts on Community Week. And a couple of events there are these award ceremonies. So forget exactly what COPA stands for, but it's basically the guild, Star Atlas guilds, get a chance to talk about what they've been doing. And then based on certain criteria, they give awards to the most active or, something how the guilds get ranked. And then the Joni Awards are actually more for community members. I think there's actually a guild award too, but it's like content creators and tools and things like that. So it's, again, another way that they can call out the different community members and, give a shout out, but also an award. Joni, I believe, is the female character from the original trailer because they get a little statue of her, if I remember correctly. Don't have links to those yet, but if you go to Star Atlas Discord and find the announcements, I guess actually if you find the announcements on my website, there'll be links. But I believe there's a couple of different nomination forms you can fill out if you want to participate, and then there would be a voting thing, and then the awards are announced during this Community Week. Traditionally, in the past, Community Week did have a few other events, but they haven't made any announcements. I think last year there was a town hall too, but I can't remember. But anyways, so that was at least the main news that I wrote down from the Atlas Brew. The main part of the Atlas Brew was to talk about HoloSim, and actually it was actually cool. They brought on some gamers. Not sure if they're aligned with any of the beta testers. I know there's a group, I forget what it was called, that's been designated as helping to test, but I thought that was with the UE5 version, so I don't know if there's a similar kind of test group, testers, official testers for the HoloSim, but whoever was there were definitely very enthused about HoloSim, playing it. There was even some live demos, or not live, but they were showing it live and even showing like some people heading out to attack other fleets and things like that. It was there. If you've listened before, I do kind of my thoughts, but I'll just comment directly on what was said and how it was said, because I actually enjoyed it. What was mentioned by the different players, gamers, was that it's very strategic. There's lots of strategic actions going on. And that was actually interesting, comparing it to the current Sage, where I'm not saying there isn't strategy, but definitely more, I guess what I'm playing, I guess you could call a strategy. Again, but it was much more that actions have an impact on your strategy. So that was good. The other thing they mentioned that you could definitely tell from their enthusiasm was they were having a lot of fun playing it. And they say enthusiasm is contagious or something. I have to admit, I was, that sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. It really came through on that. Another thing they actually mentioned that was really, I thought, insightful is that because my understanding on Holosim is some of the mechanics of the current live game economy have been either removed, so like the blockchain stuff is gone, so there's no signing transactions or that, it's just clicking, but also you get rewards, and those rewards compound as you play more. I think it's with crew. It sounds like, again, you could lose a fleet but still rebuild your fleet pretty straightforward. If you lose, we can't lose fleets yet, but it'd be real world and stuff or real economic consequences in Sage if you lose something. So they were mentioning that the more active you are playing Holosim, the more, quote, bigger fleets or whatever moving up that thing. And so they were joking that some people think of them as the whales, and they said in the real game, whales are people with lots of money, not necessarily active players. And I thought that was actually really interesting. And again, I don't want to necessarily get into the back and forth between should people with money have things. If we're trying to create a real economy, that's just how the world works. If you have money, you have things. But the effect of more investment of time to, again, I'm not sure if level up's the right word because I haven't played Holosim, so speaking without knowing what I'm talking about. But it definitely came across, and that was what one person mentioned, and I really found that very intriguing because it is a different way to how we thought of Sage. And then the last thing they mentioned, that they felt that this is a could be a very interesting preview of combat that's to come in C4, which is the next version of Sage that they've been talking about. Again, one of the C's is combat. So that also was intriguing, though. I'm not sure for sure if somebody contradicted that, but it was basically, yeah, but again, this is a preview. This is where we test things. This is based on how this product should play. Anyway, so overall, I have to admit, I came away very intrigued. And it really showed through in the people that they brought on stage to talk of, you could really tell they were interested. Oh, and then one other person mentioned that they actually have been neglecting their Sage playing because they say they have a timer and so they have to go fix something. And they're like, I'll get to it. And they kept playing. Definitely, if you've been around for a few years and seen how products from StarOS come out, this is the first one that has that stickiness or engagement that I've mentioned many times, that if you get into it and get sucked into it, that's really cool. So anyways, those were some of the comments from the people talking, but moving now into my next segment, thinking of the state of StarOS this last week, thought I would speak a little more personal. And I was, again, very intrigued by what they were saying about Holosim, but I have to admit, I just don't have the time. And again, it sounds like they were putting a lot of time into it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm contradicting myself, but I am playing Sage. I am working on my goal. If you've been listening to my podcast, what I've been working on to try to redeem a Mamba X with different mining and then movement or transport of that. And it doesn't take a ton of time, I'll be completely honest. But again, I'm still checking each morning, each afternoon, making sure my fleets are still moving. Then I have to do some refilling of different resources. So I feel like I'm quote unquote playing, and it has been moving toward a goal, which is a form of engagement to me. So I don't know. Even though it was really interesting, I guess I have a hard time. Like, I just don't have that much time to invest. And again, I know that sounds whatever because I've been always saying I want to play, but I am working on some of these other projects that are related to StarOS, though maybe tangential. This podcast takes time. If I wasn't doing this podcast, I guess I could use this time to play Holosim, but I like doing the podcast. Definitely work on my merch store or some of the other things I'm doing on my website. Those all take time too. So anyways, I guess I'm not trying to justify one way or another. And I'm very happy that there is another product. And from all indications, at least from the people that were talking at the Atlas Brew, they've nailed a really engaging gameplay loop. And again, now we have fun and strategy and consequences from combat and recovery and going out, and some people were like monitoring, and if a miner, it was just really interesting how they were talking about end coordination and chat and things like that. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I'll just have to claim, hey, I just don't have any more time. And some of the things I'm enjoying is like creating this podcast and some of the things on my website. But I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it exists. But I guess the other thing, and this is definitely a cop-out, but I'll say it's because it is beta and still being developed. Though that was one of the big positives that a lot of the people brought up. They were mentioning things, submitting it into the Discord, and then it sounds like a couple of the developers are monitoring, engaging, brainstorming, and boom, they change it. So that's awesome feedback. And I think anyone who has ever wanted to be a gamer and have some ability to influence how the game is developed, that's awesome. But again, I guess I'm still at this point where I want a finished, not a completely finished game, but a game that isn't changing on that kind of frequent basis. And again, Sage is definitely that way, where nothing has changed in months. And so I'm still working on my goals and I know how it works. Yeah, again, so a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm, again, still glad Holoxome existed, and it was really cool to hear people at the Atlas Brew speak, especially because they showed great passion for that. Anyways, again, that was, like I said, pretty much everything. I guess Star Atlas did put out a short kind of intro video on their YouTube channel, which is great. I do have a link to that. But yeah, it was quiet. No other real content creators created any large videos, long videos, and or articles, which is what I monitor. I'm still trying to get into Twitter and follow, and I've made a little better success, but still feels quiet on Twitter too. Yeah, it might just be the summertime, and Star Atlas is really just progressing forward on a very steady clip with the fact that we see Holocene, we see it changing. We had a lot in the last couple of weeks but asking and getting answers back on C4. Maybe UE5 has gone a little silent, but they were alluding to their next version was coming out in July. Anyway, that's fine. They've definitely been on for this past 6 months, and a definitely much better regular clip of releasing things. And then I think there might just be a little of the summer, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, going on where people are just busy with other things. So anyways, go ahead and wrap up. I'll just talk quickly about my journey playing Star Atlas. Again, I've been predominantly just playing with Sage. Did a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, play a little bit of UE5 and figured everything out and updated my website with some new information on the preseason, but that was pretty much it. So I'm just still working on my goal of crafting or redeeming a Mob X. So I finished mining on my diamond. I'm now moving it back, slowly doing that. Moved my miner guy over to something else, and now it's doing titanium ore and slowly moving forward on how much I need there. I am definitely interacting more with the local markets, so each time that diamond transport fleet brings it back, it's taking back out fuel for sure. I was going to do a little ammo and a little food, but I wasn't really getting those, so I was like, well, I don't know, pro or con, but I have bunch of hydrogen I can craft to fuel, so I was like, I already have it, so I'll send that out. So once a week I'm just selling those on the local marketplace at that whatever Starbase that is. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So just status quo from my play there, but I think I'm 2 million titanium ore out of 8 million, which is what I think I calculated. Doing that, I think I'm halfway done moving the diamond back, slow and steady, making progress. On one note, one thing that hasn't come up, and I don't know if something changed or it's just stable, is my Solana hasn't needed to be refilled. It's going down, but hasn't needed to be refilled. So I don't know. I did make one change in this Sly Assistant tool. I haven't really played around with the settings in a long time, but I, for some reason, looked around and there was something about not closing out the rent accounts for each cargo you put in. I'm not even sure I understand, but it was like, oh, I think it said it'd save Solana transaction fee. So I clicked it, and every time I check, it still has one of those things in the cargo. So I don't know, but maybe that had a little effect. So anyways, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening. Just wrap up again. Totally open if anybody wants to be a podcast guest, long-term goal. I've had 2 guests on, again, just whatever. Anyways, if you're interested in being a guest, you can love to chat about the week in review. Definitely, if you want to promote, if you're a content creator or a builder, love to chat with you. Of course, any team members, you can go to intergalacticherald.com, look for my contact page, and you can send me an email that way. Again, just wanted to also mention again, Intergalactic Herald, my website, a great Star Atlas resource website. So guides, directories, links to different Star Atlas people in the ecosystem, so you can check it a lot. And again, just released my new Star Atlas Discord news feed, so you can keep up with the date on that, so you don't have to check Discord, and again, soon to be an email newsletter. And yeah, that's what's there. Check out my merch store, Star Atlas merch store at intergalacticgear.com. Got some mugs, got some wall art, trying to keep developing that. And again, definitely looking to start a Star Atlas gaming community of gamers who don't want to join guilds, but yet nevertheless want to hang out. So check out Intergalactic Coalition for that. Other than that, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great week ahead. This is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald.